be showing up online here in a minute. Wow. So, you had a good week?
I did. I had
Yeah.
a good week. Yep.
Yeah, this is a good start of the new month. Second month of the year. I celebrated a
Yeah.
birthday, so I got older.
Oh, happy
Older,
belated
wiser,
birthday.
and all that
Yes.
stuff. So, yeah. So, it's a good
Nice,
week.
nice.
All right. So, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Into the Woods. This is Dwayne.
This is Danita. Hi, everyone.
Hey. Wow. It is Danita's second month of the year. Can you believe it?
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's going so quickly. Oh gosh.
Very, very quickly. Before we know it, it's going to be December again,
Yeah. Let's not talk about that.
But I am enjoying it. I mean, I'm having a
I
good time. Yeah,
me too. Me
I,
too.
I was talking to somebody recently and I was telling them that, of course, when we were younger, we just wanted time to go by so quickly. It's like we want to get out of high school, get out of college. We want to get a job. And then I got a job. I was like, wait a minute, I'm responsible for this stuff.
We didn't
But
realize how valuable it was.
I know. Sleep, eat, do schoolwork. That was it. That's our
It.
thing.
That's all, and play. That's all you have to do.
And play.
Yeah. Well, we
But it's
wanted
all
to be
good.
grown.
I know. But it's all good. And like I said, I am enjoying the year. I'm enjoying the month. Things are not perfect, but I'm enjoying the space that I'm in. So I think that's what I'm learning, right? So things may not always be the way you want it to be, and things may not always be the way you planned for it to be, but you got to learn to enjoy your space.
Yeah, you do. And you're always growing in it. So even though you may not be going the path that you want to, you're learning something and growing all the time. So
For sure. So anyway, so you sent me a text, I guess last week sometime.
yes.
And you asked about a subject that I think a lot of people sometimes struggle with, don't even know that they struggle with, but it affects a lot of what we do and how we do things. So you wanted to have a conversation about imposter syndrome. What prompted that?
Well, I was prompted to ask that question because we were talking about all these changes that we want to make for 2023. A lot of it started in 2022, and we're talking about the progress we've made. And, we've told everyone that we had to make some changes within ourselves to get to these levels that we're at. But sometimes when you hit some of your goals, you still feel like, am I really supposed to do this? You kind of doubt yourself and you feel like you're not supposed to be in that particular space. So obviously we've, each step that you go, you hit that plateau, and we have done that because, here we are and the things that we've mentioned, but it's a hard thing to get over. And so that's why I was like, well, how do you really deal with that? So that's where that came from.
Okay, good. Well, for those of you out there, I mean, imposter syndrome, simply put, is the feeling that you're not good enough, or the feeling like you're in a space and you feel like you're a fraud, right? So you're sitting in a meeting, you're a supervisor, you're whatever your job is, and you're sitting with a meeting with people who are like you. Maybe the same level, maybe you're talking to some managers, you're talking about some higher ups, and you're sitting there and you're like, I hope they don't ask me a question, or I hope they don't realize that I'm not supposed to be here, or I don't think I should be here, or why am I here? I'm not good enough. This guy next to me, he's much, much smarter than, so all these things kind of go through our minds, and it really kind of causes us to shrink in the space that we're in. And Danita, you said something way back when we first started these shows. You said that sometimes we play small, and often we play small because of this feeling like, well, I'm not supposed to be here, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's what imposter syndrome is. And it can be incredibly debilitating.
Hmm.
And it can prevent us from really soaring and going to the places that we need to be and places that we should be.
Yeah. Yeah. It can. You just, for me, when I would try to do different things, I would literally stop for 2 or 3 months
Mm,
because I'm like, I'm not supposed to be doing this. And although I've done part of it, now here it is. I'm like looking at it like I'm not supposed to do it, and I would just stop for
mm.
months. And
Wow.
so, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
So
difficult.
it can be so hard that it holds us back, like you're saying, and it prevents us from reaching our full potential. Now, as I was describing this sitting in that meeting, right, with people around you, and you not feeling like you're good enough. Can you imagine the energy that it takes away from you? So rather than listening to what's going on in the meeting, and rather than contributing meaningfully to the meeting, you're spending all this time
Trying to
almost
hide.
trying, right, trying to hide.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, trying
that's
to hide.
work.
So it saps your creativity.
It does. It does. You stop
Mm.
thinking and stop trying doing anything because you're so focused on, like you said, I hope they don't pick on me. Like, let me hide behind this person. Let me slide to the left.
Hmm.
You're so busy doing all of that that
Right,
you forget your goal,
right.
you know. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember years ago I did. There was this class that I was doing. It was a group that I was in, and the leader of the group, because I suffered from imposter syndrome for a long time. So
Hmm.
so and I guess that's a good point to make here, that sometimes imposter syndrome occurs in places that you don't expect, because everybody said to me, oh, you're doing well, you're moving forward, you're doing these things, but all the while not knowing that, yeah, I was doing these things but wondering, okay, am I supposed to be here?
Hmm.
So back to this group. Now I'm in this group, and the leader of the group said, hey, I want you guys to draw a picture of how you see yourself. Okay. And I'm an upfront first person. I like to be upfront. I like to, like, this is what we're doing right now. I mean, I get energy from this. So I always like being upfront. And I drew a picture, and the picture was an audience, and I was standing in front of an audience at the podium. I had the mic, and I was kind of grayed out. And there was a bubble over my head. And in the bubble I wrote, I hope they don't realize who I am.
Oh, wow.
That's what I drew. And so for a long time, that was I mean, I was doing things. I was
Mhm.
excelling according to what people were saying. I went through school and did all of those things. But yet there was this, okay, am I really supposed to be here? So people can
Mhm.
still be, quote unquote, successful and be going through their lives and still suffer from imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you
Right.
said, sometimes you don't even know it exists. You don't
Right.
even know it's there
Right.
until you try to do something out of your norm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's characterized by feelings of inadequacy, insecurity, self doubt, right?
Hmm.
Fear of not being good enough is
Hmm.
another place that it shows up. And
Hmm.
sometimes when we think imposter syndrome, we think that it only affects work, but
Hmm.
does it affect other parts of your life? Is it just a work thing?
I don't think it's just a work thing. I just think it's um if you're trying to do things differently than you normally do in any aspect of your life, it can show up because it's different. You know, I don't know how else to put it.
So I mean, so our personalities, our lives are broken into several pieces, right? So there's work, there's our professional life, there's our personal relationship life, right? So whether it's in our home, you know, husband, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, it also shows up in our parental lives. So we can, you know, we can break that down even further, how we interact with our kids. And so, you know, scenarios can play out a lot of different ways, right? So you don't feel good enough at work, so you come home and you're mad at everybody. Right? Yeah. So because you're processing that stuff from out there, you bring it home. And at home, everybody loves you. I mean, everybody thinks you're the bomb. You are, you know, you're the best thing since sliced bread, right? You're walking on cloud on 9. You're up there. You're flying, and that's how everybody feels about you. But because you can't process what's out there, you're mad, and so you come home and you make the rest of the house miserable.
Yeah, yeah.
So it doesn't just stay out in the
professional
world. It doesn't just
world.
stay out in professional work, right? Yeah.
No, it doesn't. It trickles into every aspect of your life.
Right. So we gave a couple examples there. How else do you think it shows up at work? So we said, hey, it stunts your creativity. What other things can happen at work if you're suffering from imposter syndrome, you think?
At work, well, work, it's about performance. It's about, I mean, it's about interaction, you know, I mean, but that's everything though. I mean, for work, it's all about performance, I think. You know, so that's it.
So performance, does that show up as anxiety? Does it show up as self-criticism? You know, does it show up as not being able to give people an honest opinion? What?
See, I don't have imposter syndrome at work. So I boss everybody around. I think I'm the boss anyway. So I don't, I really can't answer that accurately. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that one.
Hold on a second here. Let me pop up. Okay, so it affects your life, it affects your work. What do you think are some ways that we can start working on overcoming imposter syndrome?
I think that even though you feel like you don't deserve to be doing or you shouldn't be doing a certain thing, I think you should just continue doing it. Because why not? You know?
So that's just kind of a push through, is what you're saying?
Yeah. It's a kind of push through.
And I think one of the things that sometimes happens as we are trying to push through is that we there's this tendency to focus on negatives, right? And that's what prevents us sometimes. So that even though we may have been successful in 100 things, we always focus on that one thing that we didn't do well.
That's
right?
true. That's true. But you gotta remember those other 99.
Right, those 99. And I think one good way to do that, and this comes back to some of the things that you do, and we've talked about your journals, is creating a success journal, so that you can write those down, write the things that you're doing, write the successes you've had, so that when you do run into these times when that other brain is telling you something negative, you can go back and say, "No, look at this. Look at what I've done." Right. So it's kind of proving to yourself that no, I've actually done some things. Yeah. Right. Because in the moment we tend not to remember that.
That's true.
Yeah. Also, you know, these mantras that we talk about, you know, we've talked to people about coming up with their daily routine, coming up with their ritual, their daily ritual. And part of that daily ritual can be that mantra that I am whatever, right? So I tell you guys, you know, I've said this before, I am a content creator. I am a successful entrepreneur. I am making a difference in the lives of the people that I'm touching. So having all of those things, available to us are ways for us to begin moving out of this imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome.
And then, of course, surrounding ourselves with people, surrounding ourselves with support groups. Those are out there. So support groups, people who can pour into us, people can speak into us, people can build us up. Because we have enough people around us that aren't building us up, aren't supportive of us, and people who are actually actually want to tear us down. So having a support group, I think, would be great.
Great. Yeah. That's very important for that.
All right. Now, are there any good things about imposter syndrome?
I cannot think of anything that's good about imposter syndrome.
I think beginning to recognize that imposter syndrome is a common struggle that we all face is a good place to also, or a good thing to also include in our how do we break out of imposter syndrome. So we're not alone. So often we think that, you know, whenever we're in a situation, we think that, oh, it's only us. We're only the ones going through this. But there are people all around who suffer from imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
People who actually who can be relatively successful, right? Who are suffering from imposter syndrome as well.
That's true.
Self-talk, and on my other channel, I have a module that I did on positive self-talk. So that's a good one as well. And beginning to cultivate that mindset of success, of positivity, right? And often it's hard to, if you've been in that mindset of negative, it's difficult to find something positive to say about yourself.
It is. It's very difficult to find something positive to say. Guys, you see me not saying too much because I have imposter syndrome, and so I'm actually listening to my brother talk to you guys. He's talking to me too, so that's why I'm not saying so much today.
So, but yeah, so I mean, it's one of those things that it can be so insidious, and if you don't recognize it, it can steal years of success if you are not careful. Because so here's an interesting thought, right? So all the people that have imposter syndrome out there who are successful, right? They're successful. Imagine how much more successful they would be if they didn't have to spend the energy to kind of get through this imposter syndrome, right?
Wow.
I mean, they're already successful, but think of how far they can be if this imposter syndrome was something that they didn't have to grapple with.
Wow. I never thought about that. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. So there's a she's at the Life Coach School, and I'm not affiliated with them, but Brooke Castile, I was listening to one of her podcasts, and she said kind of the same thing. Suppose, right? So you think, pick a number. You think I'm a 30% out of 100. Right. Like, man, I'm a 30%, right? And 100% is like, oh yeah, I think I'm great. Right. And you think, okay, 30% is the best that I'm supposed to be, right? Suppose you're wrong.
we're basing it being wrong because you have imposter syndrome. So if you're definitely wrong, if you're
Right.
dealing with imposter syndrome, you're
Right.
100% wrong. So you're
Yes.
double that.
I'm saying. So you're at 30 and you think 30 is your 100%.
Hmm.
Imagine if we got rid of the imposter syndrome or dealt with the imposter syndrome, and now you can really be at the 100% you're supposed to be. That's another 70% better than all
That's a
the
lot
best things that you've ever done
you've
in
ever
the entire
done.
your entire life.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
That's amazing
That's
to
a
me,
different, that is amazing.
you know.
Could you
And
imagine?
yeah, and that goes back to your idea about playing small. We play small because there are all these things. Because somebody at some point, and I guess that's another place to say, well, where does imposter syndrome come from? Where do we get that from?
Well, you've all your life you played a certain role,
Mm-hmm.
right? You are what pretty much everybody thinks you should be, so you kind of fall into a role. So
Mm-hmm.
now you're not trying to be that particular person anymore. You're trying to be more
Mm-hmm.
different, go down different avenues, experience new things. And so now because you're supposed to be a certain way and now you're not, it's like, okay, this is not what I'm used to, nor is anyone else used to. So I
Right.
think that's where it comes from.
Mm. Yeah. And I mean other things, right? So, somebody said to you, you're never going to be anything,
Right?
right? They say that often enough, and people respond to that in a couple of ways, right? So either they succumb to it, they hear it, they internalize it, it becomes part of them, and that's what they
Mm-hmm.
do. Or they're like,
Or
"Nah, you were wrong, and
wrong.
I'm going the opposite direction."
Mm-hmm.
So somebody said that, or we tried something and we failed,
Mm-hmm.
and the devastation that we felt, right, at that moment was so large, so big, that we decided, okay, we're not going to do that again. We're not going to be that big anymore. And
Right.
so we start going into that mindset. And so the interesting thing about the mind and the body is that your brain is going to find evidence to support what you think. So if
Mm.
you think you're not supposed to be there because you're always going to make mistakes, when you make a
That's what's gonna
mistake,
happen.
the brain is going to say, aha,
I
see, I
told
told you.
you.
Right?
Yeah.
Not realizing that the other person also made the same mistake. Everybody makes that mistake, or everybody makes a mistake. But
Right.
we've taken that, and the brain takes that and uses it as support,
Evidence.
as evidence that, yeah, you were
Mm-hmm.
right. You were not supposed to be here. And
Mm.
we start going down that rabbit hole.
Down a spiral. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
So the self-talk and the journaling and all that you've mentioned a
Mhm.
little while ago would help you kind of, even though that happens, go back, take a look at what you wrote and different things and just keep
Yeah.
going forward.
Definitely. Definitely. And it's so helpful. We have a couple of coaches in us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said couple of coaches, but I should say we have a doubter and we have
Mm-hmm.
a cheerleader.
Okay.
And we have to give the cheerleader enough ammunition to use against the doubter. Because the doubter
So it can
always
be
has
louder.
everything. The doubter has more ammunition readily available
Yeah.
to him or her than the cheerleader, right? Because we always remember the bad things we did. So the doubter,
Yeah.
he could be asleep and something goes on, he wakes up and he's like, remember this, and this. But the cheerleader sleep, and when cheerleader wakes up, he's like, okay, what did we do good? What? And so right, the cheerleader has to go find stuff. So
He'd be
that's
like,
what the journaling. Yes. So that's what the journaling and the mantra and all that stuff does. It helps to support the cheerleader because the other guy always has stuff.
he's got a lot.
Forever is going to have stuff against us.
So
So
we need to give the cheerleader space, room, evidence to be louder.
louder, very much so. I love that. I love
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Much louder.
Okay.
And
Okay.
sometimes it is a matter of drowning out, right?
Mhm.
It is a matter of drowning out the negativity. But it takes practice. It takes
Yeah.
practice to be able
Yeah.
to do that. And
Yeah.
everybody has doubts and insecurities, right? So that's a part of this human condition that we're in. It's what we do with them that counts.
Yeah. Yeah. And pretending is not an option because pretending is not dealing with it. You agree with
Mm,
that?
I agree. I agree.
Okay.
Because it's gonna come out.
Yeah.
It
It's
might come
gonna
out
show up.
sideways. It might come out. Yeah, it's gonna come out.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
But yeah, it's gonna come out. So, but that's imposter syndrome, y'all. I mean, it is that feeling like you don't belong where you are, that you're a
Mhm.
fraud,
Mhm.
and for me, years of counseling and years of processing and years of supporting my cheerleader and years of positive self-talk, I think
Mhm.
has gotten me to the place that I am. And really just kind
Mhm.
of understanding, and for us, and let me throw this in here, uh, the faith that we have sometimes, and when I say faith, I'm talking about spirituality and church and so forth.
Mhm.
Sometimes we underestimate the power it has to bring us out of some of the things we talk about. For instance, imposter syndrome.
Okay.
And if you're a person of faith, that doesn't mean that you don't suffer from imposter syndrome. But I want to tell you that sometimes we discount the power of that faith to get us through. Because
Mhm.
I sure did.
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, this
Yeah.
is not going to help me." And so I was in that for years and years and years and years. And so glad that I am able to talk to people and say, "Yeah, I suffer from it." And even now, if I'm not careful, I can slip back into it.
It's
So when you hear,
sneaky.
so it is sneaky. It is sneaky.
It's very sneaky.
So when you guys hear me talk about imposter syndrome and the space that I'm in now, that doesn't mean that imposter syndrome is gone. It just means
Mhm.
that I have found ways of dealing with my imposter syndrome, and I can now talk with my cheerleader against that negative person and say, no, 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 you're wrong. I did make a mistake, but that doesn't mean that I don't belong here. I did do that wrong, but that doesn't mean I don't belong here.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
So and that's where all the things that we talk about, when we talk about coming out of the woods, y'all, that's it right there.
Mhm.
That's the ultimate coming out of the woods. That
Yeah.
there are things back there are things in us, there are things in our thoughts, there are things that we've gone through, but we're not staying there. And that's what
Mm.
2023 is.
Yep.
2023 is a time when we're coming out of the woods and we're saying, nah, we're not doing that anymore.
Yep. Yep.
Boom.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, boom, there it is.
Boom, there it is. Gonna drop the mic. Boom. But
Thank
yeah,
you,
yeah. So
Mr.
that
Wood.
so that was I love that conversation. If you've not done so yet, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, Into the Woods. Hit the subscription button. If you don't have an account, go ahead and create a free account and hit subscribe, and then hit the notification bell so that you'll be alerted of things that we do as we go on. So Danita, anything new going on with you right now that you want to tell people about? Any new journals out?
No,
But we still have the journals that are
nothing.
out, and there are how many of
There.
them now?
Fine.
5. Okay, so there are 5 journals that are out there. Please go ahead and support Nita. I'll get that. I think it's in the show notes from the last show. Maybe I'll put it again in this show notes. And then of course get over to our website, Dwayne Wood MD. We've got all of our offerings there: our coaching, our blog, our you can get over to our YouTube channel as well and listen to some of the amazing things that we've got going on over there. But thank you guys for being here tonight. Thank you for listening. Thank you for hanging out with us. If you know anybody that suffers from imposter syndrome, put a yes in the comment. If you're watching on the replay, put hashtag replay. We'd love to connect with you. If you want to drop us a line, you can do so in the chat. You can also send us a message at Into D Woods. So into the letter D Woods, WOODES @gmail.com. And we will see you at the next show. Good night, everybody. This is Dwayne.
This is Danita. Good night.
All right. Take care.